Hello, football fans, and welcome to the press box. I'm Timmy, and I'm here to answer the call. It is Thursday. Oh, it is Thursday. We have a lot on Answer the Call podcast, previewing Thursday night football. Got the game picks. A listener has tuned in and listened, provided us the weekly picks again. So it'll be us versus a listener once again, guys. It is Thursday night. We have Eagles Commanders in Philly Thursday night. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. We're going to preview that. We're going to go over some college games, preview them, and pick some of the, some of the bigger, maybe not bigger, but, some of the better matchups in college football this weekend. So you don't want to miss it, guys. So just kind of sit back, relax, enjoy, answer the call, and we're going to get started with the first call. And first call is going to be previewing Thursday night football because I want to get started on the big game tonight. Whew! Philadelphia Eagles, Washington Commanders, battle of the NFC East, guys. It is going to be a this is one I'm actually excited for, guys. I'm excited for the Eagles Commanders on Thursday night, battle for NFC East. You know, Jaden Daniels versus Jalen Hurts, the Eagle defense versus Jaden Daniels. I really wish that Marshawn Lattimore was playing for the Commanders tonight, but he's still dealing with, I guess, that hamstring injury or whatever's been keeping him on the sideline. So, Commanders won't have newly acquired Marshawn Lattimore. And, when they traded for him, they knew his history and they knew his injury and all that. But man, if you're the Commanders, you really wanted, you know, Marshawn Lattimore to be here for this game. That's why you traded for him, is these big NFC East division games, playoff games. So the Commander defense will need to buckle up because that Eagles offense, that Commander defense is going to need to buckle up because that Eagles offense, it's no joke right now, guys. It's no joke right now. All right, so here we go. This is a Thursday night football game that I'm actually excited about. The Eagles are hosting the Commanders. It's a battle for the NFC East. Jaden Daniels has played great this year and has helped lead the Commanders to a 7-3 start this season. Nothing to be ashamed of there. Rookie sensation Jaden Daniels, you know, putting the team on his back at times, and off to a great start for a rookie. So this is going to be a big test for him today, though. That Eagles defense is no joke. And that Eagles defense is young. They just, it's like Howie Rosen just keeps finding these defensive players in the draft. You know, uh, all 31 other teams just kind of bypass on these players, and Howie's like, hey, I want this guy. And it's crazy because over the years in more recent years, he's kind of went with a lot of Georgia Bulldog defensive players, and I mean it's working. It led Georgia to national titles, and now they're playing in the NFL together and building on that chemistry that's already there. So it's going to be a tough test for Jaden Daniels, guys. Rookie on the road on a short week against a great defense. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. Going to be an interesting for sure. I think this will be a great game with lots of scoring, honestly. I know the Eagles' defense is good, but I just think that, some way, somehow, the Commanders find a way to put up the points. Obviously, the Eagles are capable of putting up the points. So maybe this is a good old fashioned shootout that I've been waiting for, like on some of these games. But so the Commanders have won 3 out of their last 5. Last week snapped a 3-game winning streak. They lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers 28-27. So they're going to be looking to bounce back. They're going to be looking to bounce back. Prior to that, they had won 3 straight. So Brian Robinson, sorry, not Bijan, Brian Robinson Jr. is going to be back to help the run game. So you know, help take some of that pressure off of rookie Jaden Daniels, and they still have Austin Eckler. So maybe Washington's game plan will be to get the ball moving, to run the ball, and have success that way to kind of counteract that Eagle offense. The Eagles are 7-2, guys. The Eagles are 7-2. They started the season 2-2. Won a game, lost a game, won a game, lost a game. And since then, they have won 5 straight. They've won 5 in a row. Ever since Nick Sirianni has shaved his head, guys, it's like a whole new Eagles team. Maybe the hair was the hair of Nick Sirianni was holding the Eagles back, guys. It was holding them back. I don't know, but they're on a winning streak, and it's no joke. Their offense is clicking clicking on all cylinders right now. It's no joke. They got A.J. Brown, they got Devonta Smith, they got Dallas Goedert, they got Saquon Barkley, they got Jalen Hurts. It's a stacked offense, guys. It's a stacked offense. And honestly, it looks like it'll be hard to slow them down right now. It's really going to take a good defense to slow down this Eagle offense. In their 5-game win streak, the Eagles only allowed one team to score 20-plus points. So in that 5 games, only the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is kind of crazy that it was the Jaguars of all teams that only that put up the 20 points. But hey, it's the NFL. Anything happens on any given Sunday, any given Thursday. So, but the Eagles are on a 5-game win streak. Only have allowed 20 points one time in that span. So they're doing pretty good, guys. They're doing pretty good. Now, what I like to kind of do, I don't do this with the NFL as much because it does kind of get a little tricky at times. But I'm going to give some stats and a little stat breakdown of Eagles versus Commanders. Okay, so we have Eagles points per game, 25.9. They're allowing 17.9. The Commanders are scoring 29 and allowing 21.7 points per game. So, the Commanders are slightly outscoring the Eagles, but they're also slightly allowing more points than the Eagles. Of course, the Eagles have already had their bye. The Commanders have not. So, the Commanders have played all 10 games already. So, all right. So total touchdowns is 28 for the Eagles. Their opponents have only scored 16. While the Commanders have scored 30 touchdowns. Okay, so they've scored 2 more than the Eagles. They've also allowed a lot more touchdowns. They've allowed 27 total touchdowns. Total first downs for the Eagles is 191, and their opponents is 149. The Commanders is 221 to 198 for their opponents. Rushing first downs, 89 for the Eagles, 52 for their opponents. Meanwhile, the Commanders have 89 rushing first downs to their opponents' 79 rushing first downs. Passing is 90 for the Eagles, 86 for their opponents, 111 for the Commanders, and 102 for their opponents. So, first downs by penalty, Eagles have 12, their opponents have 11. Meanwhile, the Commanders have 21 first downs by penalty, and their opponents have 17. Third down. Whew. Not looking good for either team. The Eagles' third down efficiency is 47 for 120, and their opponent is 39 for 109. The Commanders convert 55 out of 123 while their opponents 48 for 114. Now the percentage on that is 39.17 for the Eagles, 35.78 for their opponents. Meanwhile, the Commanders, up to 44.72 and their opponents 42.11. So that's really interesting that, it's so close. Fourth down, this is actually where the Commanders actually are really good. So the Eagles are 12 out of 18, and their opponents are 7 out of 11. Okay. The Commanders are 11 out of 12 on fourth down. I would have thought the Eagles would have had something kind of closer to that number. But the Commanders have 11 out of 12. Their opponents have 9 out of 15. So that percentage is 66.67 for the Eagles, 63.64 for their opponents. Meanwhile, Commanders' fourth down percentage is high. It's 91.67 to their opponents only 60, which is still a pretty good conversion rate on fourth down. All right, passing. Here we go. Eagles have 197.8. Their opponents have 173.4 passing per game. The Commanders have 223.5, and their opponents have 182.2. So kind of close. Pretty even matchup. Sacks and yards lost. This is kind of an interesting one. This one kind of got me. The Eagles have taken 27 sacks and have lost 201 yards because of it. And their opponents have, they've sacked their opponents all in all 25 times for one, or their opponents have taken 25 sacks for 171. Now, the Commanders have 21 sacks for 115 yards lost, and their opponents 27 for 164. Eagles lose a lot of yards on sacks. That's kind of crazy to me, guys. That's a little crazy. I'm not gonna lie. All right. Here we go. Rushing per game, 176.1 for the Eagles, and 100.7 for their opponents. The Commanders have 153.5, and their opponents 142.7. So the Eagles have a slight advantage in the rushing game, and that's no surprise with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. So total yards per game, 396.2 for the Eagles. They are only allowing 293.1 yards per game on the opponents. The Commanders, meanwhile, sitting at 388.5, and their opponents are 341.3. So Eagles are definitely holding teams to under 300 yards a game. So that's a good category. Field goals made versus attempted. 12 out of 15 for the Eagles, 17 out of 20 for their opponents. The Commanders is 27 out of 31, and their opponents 11 out of 12. Now this is where it gets a little interesting. Penalties and average, or penalties, yards, and the average. So the Eagles have 58 penalties for 427 yards. That is a average of 47 yards of penalties per game. Their opponents, 41 for 306, 34 penalty yards per game. The Commanders, 59 for 452. That's about 45 yards, penalty yards a game. And their opponents is 56 for 468, so 46.8 penalty yards per game, guys. So that's interesting. I just started kind of tracking the penalties and stuff. So I don't know. We'll have to see which team commits the least amount of penalties. 10 fumbles lost. Eagles have 10, have lost 6. Their opponents, 14, have lost 6. Meanwhile, the Commanders have lost 10, or have fumbled at 10 and only lost it 2 times. And their opponents, 10 for 6. Now, the turnover ratio, the Eagles have a turnover ratio of 1, and their opponents, 83. Meanwhile, the Commanders have a turnover ratio of 6, so they have a slightly better one than the Eagles. And their opponents, 89. So that is the preview of Thursday Night Football, and it is time to make the game pick for Thursday night, guys. All right, so once again, the listener has tuned in, listened, said, hey, I want to be a part of this weekly pick-em with you guys. I want to see how I stack with you and Steven. Steven's not here. Once again, I made it a little late coming home from work, so we weren't able to start in time. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm sure he's going to be back tomorrow. Why? He's going to be fired up when he's back. He's going to be fired up, guys. All right, so it's Eagles, Commanders, Thursday night. NFC East division game. Steven picks the Commanders. Uh-oh. Huh. That's interesting. The listener has picked the Commanders. Huh. Well, can it be a clean sweep? Are all 3 of us going to pick the Washington Commanders? I mean, Jaden Daniels is a rookie sensation. He can do it, right? Nah, not so fast. I don't think so. Not today. Not right now. It is the Eagles. It is Jaden Daniels is a rookie QB on a short week. I don't like that turnaround for a rookie QB. I'm going with the Eagles here, guys. So Steven in the listener says Commanders, and I'm going against them, and I'm saying the Eagles. And everybody in Philly is going to be wanting to say, fly, Eagle, fly, huh? So that is the Thursday night game. That wraps up our first call of the day. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to switch over to a little college preview. And I'm going to pick some of the games that I think are what's gonna happen in some of these college games. But I do want to do a quick preview, kind of like I just did, of the Eagles Commanders before we get started on the picks. Are there any breaking news before we get started? I think there is, actually. The Bears have discussed benching Caleb Williams. Conversations were had to give rookie QB a break to try and save him during losing streak. I don't know, guys. I don't know if that's saving him a QB or helping or hurting, because you kind of talked about a little bit yesterday with Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young. I feel like all you're going to do is hurt his confidence. He knows that he's playing bad. He knows that he needs to play better. He doesn't need to be benched and the whole world to see that he gets benched. So it's like a hitter in baseball. Sometimes a hitter, he gets in a slump. And he has to work through it. And benching him isn't going to help him work through it. It's probably going to make it worse. So look for Caleb to, I want Caleb to try and work this out and try to turn it around. But they might have different ideas. So next up, Michigan is prepared to offer a lot of money to try and flip this 5-star QB that is committed to LSU. Underwood could get $10.5 million NIL. Wow. Michigan is going all out here, guys. They're trying to flip that 5-star commit. So Speaking of commits, a four-star QB decommits from Florida State. Tremel Jones Jr. becomes sixth recruit to decommit from the Seminoles amid 1-9 record this season. Oh my gosh. Florida State can't get anything right, guys. Holy crap. They're just sitting here and losing recruits. They don't have any wide receiver recruits for 2025. Now a four-star QB just decommitted. Oh, it's not looking good down in Tallahassee, guys. Florida State fans, if you're listening, I'd love to hear. We would love to hear. And NFL Combine is going to stay in Indianapolis after new deal through 2026. So, hey, and I don't know, guys. I would like to hear your guys' input on this one. You know, the Combine has basically always been in Indianapolis, always been in Indy at, Lucas Stadium. Would you guys want to see the Combine go somewhere else? Or would you rather stay in Indy, or because like the draft used to be this way. It used to only be held in one location, and now they're, moving it around. I don't know, maybe we can get the Combine, because then maybe people could attend the Combine a little bit. I don't know. But right now it's going to stay in Indy through 2026. So that is the up-to-date news that I have right now. If anything breaks between now and the end of the show, I will provide it for you guys. But right now, that is it. We're going to move to the college side of things. We have a Big 12 matchup, guys. Colorado at home versus Utah. This could be good, guys. This one could be good. Colorado really has turned the program around thanks to Coach Prime and the NIL and transfer portal, let's be honest. Colorado only won 4 games last year, guys. They only won 4 games last year. This year, they could play in the Big 12 title game. They could play in the Big 12 title game. So, a lot of turnaround, and they're bowl eligible. So that's really exciting. Utah does stand in their way this week. Last week, Utah almost beat BYU, which would have ended their undefeated season. Utah is on a 5-game losing streak after starting 4-0 and being ranked 11th. And a large part of that is they don't have their star quarterback, Cam Rising. So Cam Rising is hurt. He's out indefinitely. And that's really kind of hurt Utah. They're on a 5-game losing streak. And I hate to see it, because Utah's offense was really going in the early stages of the season, and honestly, they were one of the favorites to win the Big 12 title, and then Cam Rising gets hurt, and it just kind of all goes downhill. All right, so kind of similar to the NFL, but on the college side, I don't have the opponents. It's just strictly, so it'll be just Utah, just Colorado stats. All right. Utah has 22.1 points per game, but oh my gosh, Colorado is 32.4 points per game. So quite a bit of difference there. Total touchdowns, Utah has 23. Colorado has 37. Another big edge to Colorado. Let's see here. We got rushing first downs. Oh, total first downs. 164 for Utah, 198 for Colorado. 70 rushing first downs for Utah. Only 50 rushing first downs for Colorado. And that's no surprise, because they don't run the ball a whole lot. I don't know if it's that they can't run the ball or they just choose not to run the ball. But they don't run the ball very often. Passing first downs is 80 for Utah, but 124 for Colorado. 14 first downs by penalty for Utah, 24. So Colorado has gotten a first down via penalty 24 times this season. Whether it be like somebody jumping off sides or defensive holding, something like that. Third down efficiency, 43 out of 131 for Utah, 51 out of 120 for Colorado, 32.82 for Utah to 42.5 for Colorado. Fourth down is 8 out of 18 for Utah, 6 out of 15 for Colorado, 44.44 to 40% on Colorado. Passing per game. This is where it just absolutely goes two different directions. Here and the rushing. So Utah has 212.4 passing per game to Colorado's 320.2 per game. 17 passing touchdowns to Colorado's 24. 14 interceptions by Utah, 6 by Colorado. Sacks and yards lost, 17 for 114 for Utah, 29 for 225 for Colorado. So they get sacked a lot. Shedeur Sanders, he gets sacked a lot, and they're losing quite a bit of yards because of it. So rushing per game, this is another one of those that kind of goes in two opposite directions, guys. 150.4 for Utah to 78.3 for Colorado. Rushing touchdowns, Utah has 6, but Colorado beats them and has 11. Total yards per game, 362.9 to Colorado's 398.6. So they're pretty even in total yards per game, but that rushing, Colorado doesn't run the ball. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's because they can't run it or if it's, just not in their style. Maybe they just want to air it out all the time. Kickoff. I did a little something different on this one versus some of the other ones, but kickoff total, Utah has 11 for 230. Colorado has 8 for 165. Average kickoff return yards, 20.9 for Utah, 20.6 for Colorado. I'm assuming there's a lot of touchbacks. Punt total. So Utah has punted 16 times for 61 yards. Colorado's punted 15 for 104, so a 3.8 average punt. These are punt returns, sorry. So they have returned 16 punts for 61 with a 3.8 average, and Colorado has returned 15 punts for 104 for a 6.9. Interception. Utah has 8 interceptions on defense for 71 yards. That's an average of 8.9 interception yards. Colorado has 7 for 163 for an average of 23.3. Punt total. Here's the punt total. Utah has punted the ball 44 times for 1,924 yards. Utah has punted that. Colorado has punted 37 for 1,582. Field goals made to attempt. Utah has 12 out of 17. Colorado has 11 out of 14. Penalties. 48 for 403 for the Utah, and 70 penalties for 633 yards for Colorado. They are penalized a lot, guys. That is crazy. That is crazy. So that is the Utah and Colorado preview. And I'm going to go ahead and give you my winner in this. I'm going with Colorado, guys. I think Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter is going to be too much for Colorado or for Utah. I think Colorado's a slightly better team than BYU. So I think, and this game is in Colorado. So I think Colorado wins this one, guys. Colorado wins this one. We have another Big 12 matchup, though. Speaking of BYU, guys, we have another Big 12 matchup that could have some playoff implications for BYU. The Cougars are undefeated. They escaped with the win last week against Utah, like I just said. Some people even feel that Utah was robbed. The coach came out and said, hey, that was taken from us and all that big deal. Regardless, BYU is 9-0 and currently leading the Big 12 Conference. Kansas hasn't quite had the season they were projected to have. They were ranked in the preseason top 25. The Jayhawks are 3-6 on the season, losing 3 out of their last 5. So, 3 out of their 6 has come in their last 5 games. Last week, the Jayhawks beat Iowa State. They went to Iowa State and beat Iowa State, guys. Not a good look for Iowa State. Not a good look. They have won 3 of their last 5 by 6 points or less. Kansas could play spoiler in this one. BYU is 9-0 and has to be careful. They have won 3 of their last 5 by 6 points or less. I mean, I think they need to get to an early lead and play smart football to avoid getting upset this Saturday. The game is at BYU and a late game, so that might be all the advantage the Cougars need. It's like a 9:15 kickoff, 9:15 on the Mountain West time, so it'll probably it'd be a 10:15 on the Mountain West. It'll be 9:15 here, so that's gonna be crazy, guys. That's gonna be crazy. Maybe Kansas isn't ready for that, and here a little stat here. They're actually kind of more even than I thought they would be, especially in scoring. But Kansas is averaging 31.7 points per game, and BYU is averaging 33.7. So not too far off there. Total touchdowns. Kansas actually has a slight edge here, 38 to BYU's 36. Total first downs is pretty even. 198 for Kansas, 196 for BYU. Rushing first downs is 101 for the Jayhawks and 85 for the Cougars. Passing first downs is 82 for the Jayhawks and 98 for the Cougars. First downs by penalty, Kansas has 15, while BYU has 13. Third down, Kansas actually dominates this one. 57 for 111 and 35 to 35 for 109 on BYU. That's a 51.35% for Kansas and only a 32.11% for BYU. The Jayhawks on fourth down is 7 out of 11. BYU, they're 16 out of 20. So 63.64 for the Jayhawks to 80% for the Cougars. Passing per game, the Cougars have a slight edge in this one, 239 to the Jayhawks, 207.4. Passing touchdowns, it's pretty even, but Cougars do have a slight edge in this one, 19 to the Jayhawks, 14. Interceptions, Kansas has thrown 1 more interception. They have thrown 9. BYU has thrown 8. Sacks and yards lost, Kansas has 8 sacks for only 67 yards lost. I mean, really, that's not terrible, guys. Compared to some of these other ones that we've went through. BYU has been sacked 12 times for only 72, so they've got sacked 4 more times, but have only lost 5 more yards. So, but sacks do result in not moving the chains on one play. So maybe it was on a second or third down, and that hurts them. Rushing per game. The Jayhawks, they don't play. They don't play. Devin Neal, has become the all-time Kansas leading rusher. But Kansas is running the ball 214.4 yards per game, and BYU's only got 163.1. 22 rushing touchdowns for the Jayhawks to only 12 for the Cougars. BYU's going to need to get a run game. Total yards is 421.9 to 402.1, so pretty similar in the yardage overall. Kickoffs. The Jayhawks have 21 for 339. BYU has 13 for 351. So a 16.1 for the Jayhawks and a 27-yard average kickoff for the Cougars. Punt, they've returned 5 for 26, a 5.2 average for the Jayhawks. Meanwhile, the Cougars have 12 for 132, and that's 11 punt yards average. Interception and interception yards. The Jayhawks have 11 for 120. That's an average return of 10.9 on the interception. And the Cougars have 12 for 132. Or sorry, they have 16 for 95. I looked at the wrong stat. 16 for 95, and that's an average of only 5.9 on the interception return yards. So, punts. The Jayhawks has punted 28 times for 1,205 yards. Meanwhile, the Cougars have punted 30 times for 1,260. Kansas has made 7 out of 9 field goals, and the Cougars have made 17 out of 20. So they've made more, but they've also attempted more. Penalties. Here we go. Penalties. 45 for 401 for the Kansas Jayhawks. That's an average of 44 penalty yards per game. The Cougars have 46 for 381, and that's an average of 42 penalty yards per game. Turnover ratio. This is where it's going to get interesting. This is where Kansas is going to really need to step up their game. The turnover ratio for Kansas is 2. Meanwhile, the turnover ratio for BYU is 10. So they will definitely need to get going and get the, Kansas is going to need to get some turnovers, guys. They're going to need to get some turnovers. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one. I'm going to kind of try to pick some of these. Now, there's a few that I may hold out on until the end. But this one I'm gonna go ahead and pick. It's Kansas. It's BYU. It's a late game. I'm going Kansas here, guys. I'm actually gonna go Kansas for the upset. So give me Kansas on the road. I just look for Devin Neal and the Kansas Jayhawk offense to kind of control the clock and maybe slow things down a little bit. BYU got lucky versus Utah last week. Maybe they don't get so lucky this week. And I think I like Kansas, guys. I know they're not going to be in Kansas anymore, Toto, but I like the Jayhawks. I think they're gonna pull up an upset here. All right, our next game. Is Clemson at Pitt. Clemson at Pitt, guys. Ooh, big ACC matchup. A big one. We got a big one. Both teams are 7-2. Clemson is great. It's currently second in the ACC, while Pitt is currently fifth in the ACC. Clemson needs to win this to stay in the running for the ACC title game. Clemson lost to Georgia 34-3 in week 1, guys. Then they would go on to win the next 7 in dominating fashion. Okay? They dominated. Like, they lost to Georgia, and it was like, okay, we're going to have to play. And they were dominating and kind of just flying under the radar. And then last week, Virginia Tech handed them a 24-14 loss. So that kind of halted the momentum a little bit for Clemson, the Clemson Tigers. Pitt started the season 7-0. 7-0. Was dominating. I mean, it was just, and we were talking Pitt in the ACC title game. And then SMU comes along and pushes Pitt around. Gave Pitt all they could handle. The Panthers lost that game 48-25. Last week, Pitt would lose its second straight. So they've lost 2 straight. They're out of the top 25. Or maybe they're just in the top 25. But it's a big one, guys. It's a big one. Pitt needs to win this game to keep their slim playoff chance alive. They have a very slim one. It is still doable. Obviously, if they beat Clemson here, that kind of helps bolster their playoffs a little bit. But pretty even matchup overall. It's a pretty even matchup. Points per game, 37.7 for the Clemson Tigers. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Panthers is at 36.7. Total touchdowns, another slight edge for the Clemson Tigers, 43 to Pitt's 41. 227 total first downs for Clemson, 203 for Pitt. 100 of those were rushing first downs for Clemson, 66 by Pitt. 108 passing first downs from Clemson, 111 passing first downs from Pitt. Penalties, first down by penalty, 19 for Clemson, 26 from Pitt. So they have an edge there. They have an edge there. Third down efficiency is 60 for 130, 46.15% for Clemson, 40 for 110, 36.36 for Pitt. Fourth downs, they're exactly the same. 9 out of 14, 64.29. So they both converted the same amount of fourth downs. Passing, pretty similar here. Slight edge to Pitt, 276.8 to Clemson's 274.8. Passing touchdowns, 25 for Clemson, 22 for Pitt. Interceptions, Clemson's only thrown 4. Pitt has thrown 8. Sacks, Clemson's taken 12 for 72. Meanwhile, Pitt has taken 22 for 132 yards lost. Rushing per game, this is where Clemson kind of dominates a little bit. 198.7 to Pitt's 150.7. So 17 rushing touchdowns. Pitt only has 13. Total yards per game, 473.4 to 427.4. Kickoff is 10 for 174, 17.4 average for Clemson. Meanwhile, Pitt has 24 for 472 for a 19.2 average. Punt, they have 13 for 123. Clemson, that's a 9.5 average. And Pitt has 20 for 256 and a 12.8 average. Interception in the yards is 11 interceptions, 74 yards for Pitt or for Clemson. That's a 6.7 average. Meanwhile, Pitt has 12 interceptions for 165 yards, so they average 13.8 yards on the return on that interception return. Punts, Clemson has 36 punts for 1,488 yards. Pitt has 35 punts for 1,510 yards. Field goals made, slight edge to Pitt. They've made 15 out of 17. Clemson's made 13 out of 17. Penalties, 50 for 482. That's an average of 53 penalty yards per game for Clemson. And Pitt has 60 for 564. That's an average of 62 penalty yards. Turnover ratio, Clemson has it here, 11 to Pitt's 5. I would love nothing more than to pick Pitt. It's a home game for Pitt. But it's Clemson. And we're getting closer to the playoffs, guys. So I'm going with Clemson versus Pitt. I like go Clemson here. Give me Clemson, them Tigers in the playoffs. All right. Missouri at South Carolina. This is a top 25 matchup between two teams in the SEC that have had their ups and downs. Missouri is 7-2 on the season, and many people thought they could represent in the SEC title game and even the playoffs. If the Tigers want to have any shot in the college playoffs or even SEC title game, they will need to win out and have some teams lose multiple games for that to happen. I don't see that. I don't see Missouri making it to either one, but they will have a bowl game regardless of what happens. They could literally lose every game, and they're still going to have a bowl game, guys. So, it's at least something to hang your hat on, and keep your head up because you are at least going to a bowl game. South Carolina is in the same situation, actually. They're pretty similar as Missouri. They will make a bowl game this year, but nothing more than that. I'm excited for this one, guys. I'm excited. This one should be a good game. Now, I had all that wrote up last night to talk about. This I found out honestly shortly after. So it might change how I make my pick. Probably not. But so the opening line started at South Carolina favored by 10. That just went up to 13.5 now. Missouri has won 3 out of their last 5. They bounced back last week against Oklahoma after suffering a blowout loss to Bama. South Carolina has won 3 straight after losing 2 in a row. All right, guys, real quick, here we go. The little stats of Missouri versus South Carolina. Points per game, they're pretty similar. South Carolina has a slight edge, 30.2 to Missouri's 28. Total touchdowns, 33 for South Carolina, 29 for Missouri. Total first downs, Missouri has 191, South Carolina 184. Rushing first downs, 98 to South Carolina's 90. Passing first downs, Missouri has 80 and South Carolina has 77. First down by penalty, South Carolina has 17, Missouri has 13. Third down efficiency, 66 for 138, 47.83% for Missouri. Meanwhile, South Carolina has a 47 out of 128, 36.72%. Fourth down, 5 out of 12, 41.67% for Missouri. 9 out of 17, 52.94% for South Carolina. Passing yards per game, they're pretty similar, guys. They're pretty similar. We have 218.4 passing yards per game for Missouri to 198 out of South Carolina. Passing touchdowns, South Carolina has 12, Missouri has 10. Interceptions, they both have 4. This is where it gets crazy, though. This is where it gets crazy. I seen this and I was like, wow. Missouri has 20 sacks taken for minus 97 yards. Meanwhile, South Carolina has been sacked 32 times for a loss of 232 yards. You don't want to be in that category. You don't want to win that category. You want to be lowest number wins that category. And South Carolina is not winning that right now. Rushing, it's pretty similar, but an edge is to South Carolina. 180.7 to 167.6. Rushing touchdown, another slight edge. 18 for South Carolina. The Tigers have 17. Total yards, 386 a game for Missouri. 378.9 for South Carolina. Penalties, 51 for 452. That's an average of 50 penalty yards per game. South Carolina, 60 for 542, 60 penalty yards per game. You don't want to be committing penalties, guys. Fumbles lost. Missouri only has 7 fumbles on the season. They've lost 4 of them, though. Meanwhile, South Carolina has fumbled the ball 17 times and lost it 10. Holy crap. But the turnover ratio, South Carolina has 5 and Missouri has 4. Field goals made, Missouri's made 16 out of 24 and South Carolina's made 13 out of 18. Okay, so I kind of already had a feeling who was going to win. I already kind of had my pick. I was picking South Carolina. The fact that the line now is 13.5 favored South Carolina probably tells me that Brady Cook isn't going to play in this game, guys. So I like South Carolina in this one. I like South Carolina. All right, before I preview the last game, I'm gonna run through these other games real quick and give you my picks on them. Okay, we have Texas at Arkansas. You know, my heart wants me to pick Arkansas. It's in Fayetteville. I know my family would like me to pick Arkansas. But I think after that loss to Georgia a few weeks back, Texas has a whole different mindset, and they're going to come in, and they're going to get that win. So I got Texas over Arkansas. It pains me to say. I've got my I've got my Arkansas hat on as I'm doing this. It pains me to say, but I'm going with Texas in this one. Utah, Colorado. I took Colorado. Virginia versus Notre Dame. I really thought this was going to be a game. Could be a game, and then I seen the line. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame. Notre Dame's favored heavy in this one. I took Clemson over Pitt. I taken South Carolina over Missouri. UCLA and Washington. It's a big matchup or Big Ten matchup, whatever, however you want to say it, between UCLA and Washington. They both used to be in the Pac 12, kind of struggled ever since moving to the Big or the Big Ten, whatever people call it nowadays. I see that it's B1G, and then I've also seen it be called Big Ten. So I'm actually going to take Washington in this one. It's a home game for the Huskies. I think this is where they get it right. So I like Washington here. Maybe it's a close game, but I like Washington. I am taking Tulane over Navy. We previewed that in yesterday's show. I'm taking Tulane over Navy in this one, guys. I like Navy, but I like Tulane, and I'm rooting for Tulane now. And if Tulane wins, remember, they get into the AAC, and Army automatically gets in. So Michigan State at Illinois, another one of these BIGs, B1Gs. I like Illinois at home here, guys. I think they're a slightly better team than Michigan State, and I look for them to try to bounce back. They've kind of had an up and down season. Well, we have Syracuse and Cal. Cal has kind of struggled here lately since joining the ACC, not the AAC, but the ACC. I really thought they were going to, do something. I thought they had a team. They finally got their first win in the ACC last week. I think maybe they build a little bit of momentum here. Maybe they build a little momentum. It's a home game for Cal, so give me Cal at home. LSU in Florida. I didn't get a chance to preview this one, and that's unfortunate. But I think it's going to be a really good game. LSU is only favored by, I think, 3 or 4 points right now. And I really want to know if DJ Lagway is playing in this one. Because if he is, I definitely think Florida can pick this one off. It's a home game for the Gators. So, I'm going to go ahead and do something crazy that I normally wouldn't do. I'm going to go ahead and take Florida, not knowing who their quarterback is this week, for an upset versus LSU. I don't usually pick against LSU very often in the SEC, but I'm going to do it here. Nebraska versus USC. USC, it busted up the Pac-12 just to be a struggling team. But they are at home at the Coliseum. It is hard to bet against USC at the Coliseum. I'm going to take USC here. Baylor, West Virginia. This game on paper, well, if you look at just the standings, isn't really that impressive. But the game itself, probably going to be a really good game. A Big 12 matchup here between two teams that have kind of really struggled this season. I think I'm going to go with, I think I'm going to take Baylor on the road. I'm going to go Baylor on the road here, guys. So, yesterday we previewed Arizona State, K-State. Arizona State's on the road. They're in the Big 12 now versus the Pac-12. I think Arizona on the road is going to come out with the win. It's a big Big 12 matchup with possible playoff implications on the line. So, give me Arizona State. I like them here. Oregon, Wisconsin doesn't really need much of a preview. They're the number one team. That's why they made this list. Kind of hard to make a pick 'em without the number one team in the nation. Until somebody shows me that they can slow down Dylan Gabriel in that offense, I'm picking Oregon, guys. Oregon's actually one of my favorites to win the national title. We have Cincinnati and Iowa State. Big 12 implications on the line for Iowa State. They really need to win this one, to not drop down any further in the Big 12. You know, I think Iowa State slides by this one and gets the win. I took Kansas over BYU. So if I'm looking at my paper correctly, that means we have one more. We have the last one. It's the last call of the day, guys. The final one. Save the best for last. It's the showdown of the week, guys. The big matchup in the SEC to determine who is in and or out of the SEC title game. Tennessee is 8-1 on the season. The Vols have won 4 straight after losing to the Razorbacks. The Vols are currently in first place in the SEC. Uh-oh, not many people didn't see that coming. Tennessee will need to go up tempo often in this one, so Georgia can't sub out players. On the defensive side, they need to get pressure on Carson Beck, make him uncomfortable, and make him make those mistakes. He's been turning the ball over a lot. Tennessee defense needs to capitalize, and then that Tennessee offense needs to capitalize off of a turnover. Georgia is currently 4th in the SEC. The Bulldogs won 4 straight after losing to Bama. Last week, Ole Miss dominated Georgia. The Bulldogs lost that one 28-10. Carson Beck will need to eliminate the turnovers if the Bulldogs want to win this. Kirby Smart has never lost consecutive games in a row. That streak could be in jeopardy this week, guys. Facing a very tough Tennessee defense. All right, so here we go. Here we go, guys. Tennessee, 37.6 points per game. Georgia, 30.8. Total touchdowns. We have 41 total touchdowns for Tennessee, 33 for Georgia. 212 total first downs for Tennessee, 187 for Georgia. 101 rushing first downs to Georgia's 61. Now, passing first downs, Georgia has an edge here. 115 passing first downs to 97 by Tennessee. Tennessee isn't much of a passing team. They like to run the ball, do no huddle, and then kind of hit you over the top when you're weakened a little. First down by penalty, Tennessee has 14. Georgia has 11. Third down efficiency, here we go. 60 for 136, that's a 44.12% for Tennessee. 44 for 114, that's a 38.60% for Georgia. Fourth down, 9 out of 13, 69.23 for Tennessee. 12 out of 16 for 75% for Georgia. Passing per game, this is where Georgia has a slight advantage. 286.4 to 236.4, so 50 yards difference per game. 17 passing touchdowns to 13 by Tennessee. Well, this is where Tennessee has an edge, guys. They've only thrown 6 interceptions on the season. Meanwhile, Georgia's thrown 12. Sacks, the yards lost, 18 for 89 for Tennessee. 15 for 107 for Georgia. Rushing per game, this is where Tennessee needs to lean on their run attack. Lean on Dylan Sampson, okay? They averaged 235.1 rushing per game to Georgia's 124.1. So Tennessee really needs to get the run game going early and often. Total yards a game, 471.6 for Tennessee, 410.6 for Georgia. Field goals made, Georgia's made 15 out of 16. Tennessee's made 16 out of 22. Fumbles and fumbles lost. Tennessee has 11, has lost 6. Georgia has 11, has only lost 3. But the turnover ratio, Tennessee has a turnover ratio of 4. And Georgia has a turnover ratio of -3. Penalties, 70 for 587. That's 65 penalty yards per game for Tennessee. 59 for 573 for 63 penalty yards for Georgia. Holy crap, guys. It is the showdown of the week. And I'm excited. Who am I taking? Who am I taking? I would love to pick Tennessee here. I would absolutely love it. But the fact is, like I stated, I'm pretty sure Kirby Smart has not lost consecutive games ever. And minus the Ole Miss game last week, he won like 53 in a row versus non-Bama teams. So I'm going to have to go Georgia here. As much as it pains me to say, I'm rooting for Tennessee. Good old Rocky Top. And I hope I'm wrong in this one. I hope Tennessee comes out and just says, hey, we're the best team in the SEC. We're going to be in the SEC title game. I don't see it happening, but I hope I'm wrong, guys. I hope I'm wrong. Well, there you have it, guys. I gave you a wonderful preview of Thursday Night Football. Also did some preview of the big matchups and gave you my predictions on how the games would go. I'm out of time for today. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. I hope to see you guys in the next episode. You guys have a great day, and I answered the call.